Okay, well, welcome to this workshop. What I'd like you to start by doing, this is how we're going to introduce ourselves today. I'd like you to make a little model of yourself using the Play-Doh. This workshop is aimed particularly at staff and volunteers who work with those patients who have been given quite a serious diagnosis. About 2 minutes, so yes, it's very much to help the staff take a step back, think about their own health and well-being, because it's often something that is forgotten with the pressing needs of the patient. Hold up your model and tell us your name and the role that you have in the hospital.
Mine wasn't very interesting. It was just a model of me, lopsided head, but my colleagues had hearts and various things that are important to them that describe them, but mine was just a person.
Everybody remembers me because I've got such long legs.
I made a smiley face to start the day with a smile so that it can end with a smile no matter how pressured we are at work.
So I ask them to swap the model with the person next to them, and I get them to look at it and admire it, and then I ask them to damage the model. And the reason I do that is not because I'm cruel and heartless, but because I want them to have that shock of having their values interfered with, because nobody wants to damage the other person's model.
I wouldn't want to do that, of course, but we have to do it. It's just making us feel how the patients feel, maybe. Sometimes you got to accept good, you got to accept bad as well.
Because it was a heart, I was conscious of what it symbolised, brokenheartedness.
When people are told that they have maybe a life-limiting or life-changing diagnosis, you can imagine that shock, anger, guilt, sadness, confusion. It's overwhelming, but actually we have that every day, all day. It's just that we're on automatic pilot and we don't often notice it. What I would like you to think about is resilience. As I've done more on resilience, I've got really into it actually, because everybody thinks it's just the ability to bounce back. It's as simple as that. And often in your roles, there isn't much time when there isn't the pressure. So, you're in a constant wobble. But actually, if you get to know the full meaning, that it is about looking at a situation and actually holding on to what's important to you, but also being prepared to adapt and be creative at the edges, that actually gives you that sense of control back and a sense of how you can move forward and out of this difficult situation. To get people talking, we have a balance scale, so there are obviously things in their work that are really frustrating and negative, but equally there are many positive things.
Getting positive feedback. Yeah, we like that.
No, that's it.
Positives, I think relationships or the bonds that you make with your colleagues, their experiences that they've shared with me and the experiences I've had with them, and their support has shaped my day-to-day work. I wasn't the only one that had these negatives and these positives, so it's nice to know that my colleagues have the same feeling, have the same struggles.
Just sharing their frustrations, I think, is really helpful. Because they feel less isolated. It does give them the chance to open up as much as they are able in a smaller group. And just list some of the things that maybe don't have such a good impact.
If your computer doesn't boot up within half an hour.
The negatives are time constraints. Breaking bad news to relatives is something that happens daily, I would say, on the ward. It doesn't get easier any day of the week. You kind of intertwine your feelings with the feelings of the relative, especially in a death.
Some of the big challenges are the fact that they're so pressurised, and most of them come into healthcare because they want to make a difference in people's lives. And I think sometimes the time pressure, the short appointment times, it's really quite tough for them, because that's the bit that helps them keep going in the difficult times.
Going back to the value of why you become a nurse or become a care assistant, I think it's very important that in spite of those difficult times, you're still giving a compassionate care to your patient.
And I was intrigued to see how their model of resilience would equate with a recognised, well-known model, the Casita model that Venice Stendhal has developed. He built it like a house, so building blocks. What are these things that we can nurture? What are these key aspects of resilience can we nurture that will help us in our work? Look at the positives. Right, excellent.
Oh, I think once we got the relationships established at the bottom, and that was easily arrived at, then everything seemed to slot in.
I found it very interesting the way they've got the relationship in bottom where the foundation is. So like me, I got married 27 years now. If you don't have the foundation, then you don't have nothing.
It was wonderful the way it all seemed to come from the earlier work that we had done on the flow chart.
You know, it doesn't mean overconfidence, it doesn't mean boastfulness, it just means that actually what I'm doing is valuable.
Yeah, exactly. It's about showing that mutual appreciation, isn't it? You know, and you get, as you said, you get a boost then both ways. Yeah.
And any time we saw him, we knew that there's something good was going to happen. So we associated Choddy with positivity.
Wonderful. Actually, things like self-esteem, your sense of purpose, and your relationships are the things that you can really focus on and do positive things that will increase your resilience. Humour has its own box. Why is that so good?
It challenged us to pick out aspects of our previous conversation and then use it positively to come to a whole and a house.
I was very pleased that actually they've pulled out an awful lot of the aspects of resilience that you can really nurture. Wellbeing and resilience is about processing stress in a healthy way. Evolutionary, we are wired the same way as the animals. We will slip into fight, freeze, flight and flop if we feel threatened, and that can happen without us even knowing it.
I would be freeze. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it would be freeze, of course, yes.
Go and stand by. It's your most common way to respond.
Because normally sometimes we do get very, very aggressive patients and they take things and just fling at you and you just freeze.
So what we'll do first is a little bit of mindful movement. I think sometimes we're charging around. Our bodies have a memory and we forget what it feels like to feel relaxed. So what I hope to do with that at least is give them a glimpse of peace that they can regain themselves just by sitting and being still or moving very calmly and gently.
Well, the physical exercises, I was aware that I'm of a certain age and that I didn't bend as much as the lady next to me. But putting that aside, I much preferred the mindfulness of the slow movements and the focus.
What we're going to do now is something which is more designed for somebody if they go into fight or flight modes, focusing on the body, being very, very still, just seated here.
Coming into a context where I was being asked to focus on the body and being very mindful, I thought, yes, I must go home and do this.
Sometimes you can't get breaks during work, which is bad, but having 5 minutes to yourself makes a big difference. I think the workshop should be provided to all staff members in the NHS. I think junior doctors would really benefit from it, knowing that they're not the only ones in that position.
This kind of exercise puts the attention on you, with curiosity and kindness often are the words that are key to this. It's not about judging anything that you feel. If you're tense, you're tense. If you're relaxed, you're relaxed. It's just noticing.
I think the workshop highlighted that it's okay, people have struggles. Talking about it is the first step. There's people out there that will help, there's people out there that will listen.